The Bengals and the Jaguars, originally thought to be division title contenders, have started the season 0-3. Is it time to actually hit the panic button in those two cities? The Dolphins have been a mess ever since Tua went down. I think it's time for them to call one of these two quarterbacks to start the rest of the way. And did Andy Dalton, with his amazing performance in Week 3, just officially end Bryce Young's young career? That and more coming up on Sports Talk with Dad right now. Welcome back to another amazing episode of Sports Talk with Dad. As always, my name is Kyle, and I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who was actually at the first ever football game against the Canton Bulldogs and Chicago Cardinals, my dad, Tim.
Wasn't there.
You might have been a little young. You're about 2 at the time.
Tua didn't play in it. If Tua, he couldn't play at all right now.
That's fair. He could not play at all right now.
Did you hear the other news that happened today?
Which one?
Announcement about Brett Favre?
Yeah, Parkinson's. My question is, okay, I love Brett Favre. He's going through a lot of legal trouble right now. The question is he saying this because he said it to a legal arbitrator, apparently, as
Sure.
he's going through this Mississippi thing, I'm sorry. Same state, whatever. And so that's the question that's out there right now. I don't think it is. The guy took a lot of hits.
He did.
And if he has Parkinson's, that is very sad news.
But not surprising with the amount of headshots he took and the amount. People have to remember.
But we don't know if there's any correlation between concussions and Parkinson's.
Really?
We don't. I mean, none of that. No, we don't even know what causes Alzheimer's at this point.
Muhammad Ali. I mean, they call it back in the day getting punch drunk. You get hit in the head repeatedly.
Right.
Your brain slashes around.
There's a lot of people that got hit that many times in the NFL that don't have Parkinson's. I mean,
it's
if that was the case, everybody in football would have Parkinson's right now. Just like everybody in football would have CTE right now. We don't know enough correlations, and so I don't think we can jump to that.
a lot more research has to be done. I love football.
I do too.
And I don't want to see this end the game, but I think it's legit to take a look at it. And getting back to Tua, he's got to look long and hard at this because he's such a young man.
Yes, to answer that question, we definitely need to continue to take a look at this. But again, there's been zero correlation from hits to the head to Parkinson's. It's all assumption because it makes sense, right? But we don't know because there's a lot of people that don't have Parkinson's. And if that was the case, why does Michael J. Fox have Parkinson's? Why do a lot of people get Parkinson's? We don't know enough about it, so you can't really correlate, but having Parkinson's is not a fun disease.
B follows A. We don't know.
We don't know.
Studies have to be done.
I just don't like people calling football because it's like, oh, Brett Favre has Parkinson's, football's evil.
No,
like,
and I don't want
know
that
if
either.
That's the case. Do I think Antonio Brown was severely affected by that hit he took when playing Cincinnati by Burfict? Yes, I do. I think that completely affected his brain.
Well, and then you look
I
at
don't know if it caused Parkinson's. I think that's a stretch.
Guys like Don Beebe, who was knocked out in a game, came back, caught a touchdown, doesn't remember any of it.
Right. But he seems to be fine now. Bart Starr, he had a stroke later in years. People say, well, look what he did in football. He just had a stroke later in years.
Yes. He was in his 80s. He had a massive stroke. That happened.
It's possible, but you can't put people in a bubble. So I'm just saying I've heard that a lot where it's like, well, look how many hits he took. That causes Parkinson's. We don't know that. People said that about Muhammad Ali as well. We don't know if that's true. There's a lot of boxers that took just as many hits that don't have Parkinson's disease.
I know they're doing studies on it.
They're doing a ton of them.
There was a lot of punch-drunk boxers back in the day where, you continually get hit in the head, and they get hit harder than with no protection.
It messes with your brain. I'm not saying that. I want to make that very clear on this show. I'm not saying getting hit in the head repeatedly doesn't affect your brain. It definitely does. I'm just saying you can't cause and affect Parkinson's disease.
Not yet. And I hope you never can, or if they can, that by that time there's a cure for Parkinson's.
100%. But brain's a fickle thing. It's the only organ in the entire universe that we know of that is named itself. I mean, it is a very special organ, muscle, whatever you want to call it, that we have. You're killing Frenchie. Absolutely killing Frenchie.
Stay.
Our squirrel fell down. I lost my train of thought. That's what Frenchie's for, though. He's
That's
like, get
it.
off this topic, go back to football. If Brett Favre suffering from Parkinson's is not a fun disease, I don't want to see Brett Favre like that. We got to see Bart Starr later in years
After the stroke.
after the stroke, and that was not a fun sight to see. We all have people in our lives as they get older. You know, it's tough,
Hey.
and I wish him a very, very, very. I guess I can't really say
Long and healthy
recovery.
life.
Long and healthy life. That's a good way to put it. Thanks, Frenchie, for keeping us on track. I appreciate it.
So we got big news. Got an announcement from our friends at Just a Bit Outside.
Yes.
They're opening up the movie to other markets in the state of Wisconsin, including our hometown in Portage. It's going to be at the Portage 7, which 7 theaters now?
I don't know.
I mean, I haven't been back there for years, but the bigger news is in New Berlin tonight, the 25th of September. After the 8:25 showing, Jim Gantner will be there again to answer questions and answers.
That's awesome.
So
I'm so happy to see
rolling.
success for this movie. Thank you for all that watch this show that have helped make this a huge success. It is more than a passion project. I saw it has a 99% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is unbelievable rating.
I want to know who the 1% is.
They're evil, and their vote shouldn't count. That's my vote for that 1%.
Great movie.
It is an outstanding movie.
By consensus, Ted Simmons is being talked about as like stealing the movie. I don't know if he steals it. His insight was good.
Between him and Robin Yount, those guys were the ones that really stole the show with their stories. Robin Yount at the end will make you cry. If you haven't gone and seen the movie, make sure you go and see it. It is absolutely outstanding. Glad to hear it's had the success that it has.
All right. You and I are going to disagree, I think.
That does make for a fun show.
Did you see the first playoff game that Caitlin Clark was involved in?
I watched the highlights. I saw her get hurt.
I was watching the game. She was raked across the eyes. I thought I was watching AWA wrestling again.
Are we talking about the fact that she got hit in the eye?
Yes.
Yeah.
She got raked in the eye with the woman had claws on.
Okay, that is one thing I don't understand. How it's legal in the WNBA to have long nails. One, I don't know how you play basketball like that.
No idea.
It is very, very talented people can do that. But two, they're not super long. I've heard people say these were like extremely long nails. They weren't super long, but they were extended nails.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't been an issue in the past, which is why they're not banned. I'm assuming that's coming soon.
No, I don't know if they'll be banned, but
I don't know. If it's like the NFL, then they'll overreact and ban everything.
yes. The stat that amazed me, 17% of all flagrant fouls in the entire league have been against Caitlin Clark this year.
Yeah, she's been picked on for sure. I don't think you can call that foul intentional by any stretch of the imagination.
Depends on the camera angle. The one I saw, absolutely. She's looking right at her and the fingers go out.
To be able to poke somebody in the eye intentionally as you're looking away, it's possible she tried to get her hand in her face. People do that all the time.
It depends on the camera angle. From the one I saw, she was looking at her when they went into the face.
I've seen both times she was looking for the ball. Her head was clearly turning as the pass was going. I don't think it was intentional by any means. It definitely did affect Caitlin Clark that night.
Yeah, I think her eyes black and blue. But the good news,
she got smoked. I mean, the hand coming down. Listen, she got hit real hard.
She did.
You don't see people get injuries like that in the face. Rarely ever in any basketball competition. So it was definitely a hard hit. I don't know if she was going for the ball because you can stop your hand. I can see why people say it was intentional. But she was looking away from Caitlin Clark when she hit her in the eye.
Here's the thing. Clark was unanimously elected Rookie of the Year.
Yes,
Finished
she was.
in the top 5 of the MVP
She was
voting.
fourth, wasn't she?
Fourth.
Yeah.
She's done more. I heard a great comparison. She is the Steph Curry / Larry Bird and the Pete Maravich / Magic Johnson rolled into one person and put on a WNBA
WNBA version of it.
Yes, absolutely. No, I'm not saying she's NBA talent. She's a WNBA. She's the greatest woman
Well, she
basketball
plays.
player I've ever seen.
She plays an NBA game. You know, why is Caitlin Clark so fun to watch? Because she plays NBA style basketball. She's playing no look passes. She's hitting shots from everywhere on the court.
Deeper
That is
than-
a very fun game to watch.
Sure.
If you look at like Angel Reese, who is also a very talented player, she plays very good fundamental basketball. And fundamental basketball, plain and simple, isn't fun to watch. And that's the big difference. And people are like, well, you know, she some nights may not be the best player on the court, but she's the most exciting player to watch on the court. And that's
Every
a big
night.
difference.
But then there are women like Cheryl Swoops who've been going after her consistently. It's jealousy from these women. I agree with all the people like
be.
Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. Smith, who've gone after for other reasons besides jealousy. I'm just focusing on the jealousy part of it. These women are not happy with Caitlin Clark doing what she's doing as a rookie.
It's hard to look at a contemporary and realize what they brought to the game and be grateful for it. It just is. Jordan saw it too. Like, people in the NBA didn't like Michael Jordan, and yet Michael Jordan brought in a lot of money into the game. People thought the same thing about Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods brought a lot of money into the game, and yet you look now, right? Jordan's gone. What do the younger generation think? He's the greatest thing to ever be in basketball.
I'm going to back it up a little bit.
Let me finish my point. Tiger Woods, same thing. New people in the NBA or in golf love Tiger Woods. His contemporaries were not a big fan, especially the older generation.
I'm not sure about that because they all saw the money rolling in. Don't forget the NBA started when it was Magic and Bird and that rivalry that came out of the 79 NCAA.
The NBA definitely did not start with that.
Do you realize before those two started that NBA championship games were on tape delay? Yes.
I understand.
It started with them.
Changed the game.
Changed the game, and the NBA
you
commissioner
had Bill Russell, you had Kareem
of
Abdul-Jabbar,
course.
you had Wilt Chamberlain.
Obviously, all those guys were great. You can go back all the way to the guy from the Minneapolis Lakers, George Mikan. So there have been great players for years, all the old Boston Celtics. However, when Magic and Bird came in, the league realized, especially the commissioner at the time, realized what he had, focused it on him, and the players embraced them. They embraced.
Yeah.
Michael was taking over like Magic said, there's a new sheriff in town.
Magic and Bird brought a rivalry in sports where you really had to pick a side, right? It was East Coast, West Coast. It was
blue collar,
different divisions.
Showtime versus
It was LA versus blue collar Boston, right? It was a very different thing that people hadn't seen before. Michael Jordan just made the name on the back of the jersey more important than the name on the front. And David Stern did a great job capitalizing on that. And that is what Caitlin Clark has done to this game. She's made it more important about the name on the back than the name on the front. She's bringing money in because NBA is about players. Players are exciting. The team sport aspect isn't as exciting in basketball. It'll win you championships. Not as fun to watch.
The WNBA better lean into this.
They are.
This is their one opportunity.
Michael Jordan got his butt kicked his rookie year. I'll never forget when Reggie Bush came in. They called him the Golden Boy, and not in a nice way, and they were looking to hit him hard. What do you think they're doing to Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels right now? They're doing it to all these young guys. This is not uncommon, and you have a rookie who's come in, all the focus is on her. What they're looking at is all the people that were there before and made this transition possible, and they don't think Caitlin Clark is kissing the ground of those people that came before her, nor should she. Michael didn't, nor should have he.
But is Caitlin Clark disrespecting them in any way?
Not even a little bit. Those were her heroes.
Everything she said, she has carried herself like a pro.
Yeah, I mean, jealousy is a terrible, terrible sin, and we're seeing it play out in front of us. I'm just saying this isn't something, people are acting like this is brand new. People are acting like we haven't seen this before, and this is something that never existed. This is the first time it's happened. We've seen this throughout history of sports. We saw it with Tiger. We saw it with Michael. We've seen it with several other athletes throughout the history of sports. This isn't something new.
It's taken it to a different level than I've ever seen. And I saw the Tigers. I saw the Michaels.
Yeah, I was there for him too. More so Tiger than I was for Michael. He was a little bit before my time. The only player I haven't seen that with is Shohei Ohtani. He's the only guy that everybody's been like, this is awesome.
Which, speaking of Shohei Ohtani, let's talk about him for a minute. Probably maybe the greatest day in the history of baseball. 6 for 6, 2 home runs, 2 stolen bases, a double, a single.
He's the greatest player of all time.
Not yet, but he's the greatest
player of all time.
He is the greatest modern player, and I'm taking modern baseball from 1950 forward.
50 home runs, 50 steals, first player in history to do it.
What is it, 53 now?
Something
53?
like that.
My question is going to be around, my question. He did this year as a DH.
Yeah.
Next year,
don't let him pitch.
He's going to want to be back in the field.
He can be in the field. I mean, but his pitching days are done. He's done pitching.
Should it be? Let him pitch.
100% should be.
Let him pitch.
He's done.
No, I think he pitches.
Are you kidding me?
I think he pitches.
Why?
Because he loves to pitch.
I get it. I'm sure Babe Ruth did too.
You got to let him pitch.
You don't got to let him pitch. You really don't. He already has had surgery to get this repaired a couple of times now. Let him hit. What if he gets a permanent injury to his elbow that affects his hitting? You want to see, why am I thinking, Bo Jackson? I mean, do you really want to see that happen?
I don't want to see his arm come off while we're watching him pitch. I just think he's going through this rehab so he can pitch.
It's great.
I hope he pitches again.
It's great. A lot of kids want to do things that they shouldn't be doing. Doesn't mean it's good for him.
He should pitch.
Would I love to see him come back?
I would love to see him
that he was and hit the way that he was. Yeah, 100%. But you have a choice to make now. You're at that point in your career. At every point in somebody's life, it comes a decision of what do you truly want to be when you grow up? And he has to decide, do I want to be a pitcher or do I want to be a hitter? Because that is the decision that now needs to be made.
He'll look at you and go, I can do both.
And maybe he can. I don't know. He's a freak of nature.
And he is the guy that once in 500 years, I mean, you had Babe Ruth 100 years ago. You have Shohei now this 100 years. Maybe every 100 years.
Babe Ruth wasn't this. He wasn't. Babe Ruth wasn't stealing bases.
No, he wasn't. Yeah, he stole a few. I mean, he stole a few. He was the freak athlete of his day.
He was. Again, every time I say something about Babe Ruth, I get taken as you hate Babe Ruth.
I'm not saying that.
He's one of the greatest players of all time.
The greatest.
Arguably.
And Shohei is going to pass him. I will grant you that. I think he's going to pass him. No. Not. Give him 10 years before I'm going to say he passes him.
That's fine. And we'll talk in 10 years and you'll say I was right.
The gods grabbed him, dipped him in special fluid and said, here. And you know what's great about it?
They dipped him by the elbow.
You know what
so you need to protect that arm.
Kelly's elbow. You know what is great about him, though? He's a Japanese player.
Yeah.
Never hear anything about that. People just love to watch him play ball. And I love that. I mean, baseball is truly...
He's a baseball player.
Baseball is an international sport like none other. Football wants to be. Baseball already is.
Correct. Basketball's not that way.
No. Baseball truly is with South Korea, Japan.
You could argue soccer globe is more so.
Except in the United
States.
But
you're not in the U.S., so it doesn't count.
Right. Sorry, but it's true. But he is just unbelievable. It's been a fun season to watch him. Now we get to see him going into the playoffs. I just can't wait till next year. See what he does.
Speaking of soccer.
Must we?
Yeah, because Frenchie's staring at me in the face and telling me I need to go off on a squirrel moment. I went in and deep dove, and tell me if I've talked about this on this show before, but I did it again this week. I went in and did a deep dive on how the leagues work and the promotions work and the demotions work. That gives me a headache. It is crazy. There's like 30 different leagues that you can be promoted, and then the reason I came across is because of Wrexham Soccer, the one that Ryan Reynolds owns, and Rob McElhenney.
Sure.
They made a show about it. I haven't watched it, but it got me intrigued. And you can get the bottom teams get demoted to a lower league. So you have the Championship League, which is not the top league, which is weird. Then you have League 2, because League 1 used to be the Championship League. It's a whole thing.
You know what that sounds like? Bar league softball.
Yeah.
Because you always have the different divisions and you can win. You have to earn your way up to the top.
That's exactly what it is. And it's confusing.
Very.
And basically it's become you have to have money to be in the top league, the Premier League. Because you got to be able to afford the best players.
Okay.
That's all it is. And then you have the lower leagues that try to make their way up to earn more money, to be able to pay those players. It's why they're trying to get big time money ownerships to be able to pay this players. It was weird. It's a whole thing. I just going down that rabbit hole.
Can we talk about real football again?
I understand it now, at least.
Okay.
I didn't call it football. I called it soccer.
I know.
But yes, let's get into football. I
don't know where you came up with it.
I don't know. It just reminded me of it. I don't even remember what we were talking about before that got me onto that tangent.
We weren't talking about anything that would put you onto that tangent. We were talking about baseball and going into football.
Oh, we mentioned international sport, and then I mentioned soccer, and that's what got me there. So we went baseball, international sport, soccer. That's what brought it to my mind.
Back to America.
Back to America?
That too.
Yeah. All right. Back to American sports. Okay. Did you watch the Panthers game on Sunday?
Yeah, part of it. Andy Dalton looked great.
Okay, I have the stats pulled up here. Andy Dalton, last week, 68.4 completion percentage for 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 120.4 QB rating.
Andy Dalton's a good
Passer rating,
quarterback.
I should say.
He's a good quarterback.
I forget, just like everybody else, how good Andy Dalton was. The problem with Andy Dalton is he sucked in the playoffs. Every playoff game he was in, he completely just fell apart.
Okay.
And that's what he's remembered for. But during the regular season, he was a really good quarterback.
Sounds like a Cowboy quarterback of today.
Yeah. Dak Prescott's kind of that same ballpark. But my question to you, did Andy Dalton just ruin Bryce Young's career?
For now,
He 100% did. It's over.
he's got a chance to be picked up yet. He's going to have to be resurrected by somebody. But
Bryce Young's career in Carolina, at least,
that's done.
is over.
That's done.
You're riding Andy Dalton until he dies. Now, Andy Dalton has games like this, right?
Sure.
Where all of a sudden he shows up, he looks great. 3 games later, oh, that's the Andy Dalton I remember.
Sure. How old is he now? 34, 35?
No, he's older than me. He's got to be pushing 38, 39.
He's going to be good for them for a while. Like you said, he'll have his up and downs, but Bryce Young has never seen the field again.
Well, Bryce Young's never had an up. Oh, he's 36. He's a year older than me. Why did I think he was older than that?
I don't know.
I just 36 years old, though.
If I'm Bryce Young and I'm his agent, I'm asking the Panthers, trade me now.
Panthers came out and said they're not going to trade him.
They'll
his days, unless Andy Dalton really starts to shit the bed, his career is over.
I don't think he ever sees the field again in Carolina. I think he's begging to be traded to Miami. Miami's not going to give up much for him. And that's the problem wherever he goes. They're not going to get much for him at this point.
Andy Dalton in one game has more touchdowns and passing yards than Bryce Young has in 2.
We called this long before the draft. A guy that size is going to have a hard time in the NFL.
Yeah.
And he's on a terrible team.
He's not seen over the line. He's on a really... But can you say he's on a terrible team when all of a sudden you put in a new quarterback and they win in a really impressive fashion?
Let's see how he does game 2, game 3.
Sure.
Their offense wasn't designed for a guy like Bryce Young.
I don't know if there is an offense that is designed for a guy like Bryce Young.
Well, that's why I said Miami. If there is one place he can go and maybe have a chance, it's to Miami.
Okay, that leads me to another question for you.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a choice between 2 quarterbacks that I think Miami should seriously be looking at this. Look, you got to let me finish my question.
Go ahead.
You do this to me too often. If you're Miami, do you look at Russell Wilson or Bryce Young?
Russell Wilson.
I had this whole nice speech laid out. I was going to paint
a
beautiful picture on the canvas that is our show, and instead you're just like, nope, just draw a stick figure.
Pretty much.
That's all you need is stick
because
figure.
there's only 2 quarterbacks they can go and get right now.
There's lots of quarterbacks they could go and get right now.
Really?
Yeah. They could look at Aiden O'Connell in Oakland. They could look at Jimmy Garoppolo. They could call about Malik Willis. They could call about Mason Rudolph.
Talking about the offense that they're running, there are really 2 quarterbacks that are available.
Malik Willis could have been a part of that conversation too.
He's not now.
They could talk to Zach Wilson.
Nope.
Of course not. I was being funny on that one.
If
they
I
could
were
look at Trey Lance as an option. I'm just saying there's a lot of quarterbacks out there, and I was painting that beautiful picture to just bring it down to 2 quarterbacks, and you just made me draw stick figures, and it didn't paint the picture I wanted. You suck.
at times. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin.
Wait,
I didn't mean to ruin your picture. Anyways,
Unforgiven.
I would go and get Russell Wilson because I want a veteran similar in every way to
But what's
Tua.
Russell Wilson going to be, though? Russell Wilson's hurt.
If he's
And
well,
he couldn't beat. He did technically beat out Justin Fields, but they're clearly not going back to him now.
not now, Justin Fields is playing great.
Yeah.
Um,
It's amazing what happens when you actually design an offense around Justin Fields' strengths.
my question is, do you want the guy who was wearing eye black when he was on the inactive list?
Still so weird.
A lot of questions there.
Still so weird.
Bryce Young could fit in the Miami offense, but again, I worry about his size. And you're going from one
Russell
injury.
Wilson's not a locker room guy. We know that.
No, he wasn't, but he is a Super Bowl winner.
I was adding to your picture you were painting.
Borderline
not just
Hall of Famer.
interrupting. My
Borderline
apologies.
Hall of Famer.
I mean, I think he is a Hall of Famer, but that's my opinion for a very specific reason.
I would take Russell Wilson over Bryce Young because I at least know what the top level is.
I can't say I disagree with you. Bryce Young, all he's proven is that he's not an NFL quarterback. I mean, he's a great college guy.
Yeah.
That's really all he's been, but I don't know how many chances he's been given. It's the same thing that we see happen to first-round quarterbacks all the time.
Like
you go from coach to offensive coordinator to offensive coordinator. You never have a chance to survive. Trey Lance had every chance in the world. And
Alex Smith went to until he finally found somebody to settle him down and just gave it to him and said,
Trey
go and do
Lance
it.
was supposed to be the reason they didn't have to sign Dak Prescott. Like, that's what Trey Lance was supposed to be, and he's yet to become that. I don't think he's going to ever play in the NFL again.
Garoppolo, you're going to get somebody who's injured, and it's a different kind of offense if you bring in Garoppolo.
Yeah, I agree that's not the option. I agree those are the two options. I'm just saying I was painting a picture, and by you just making me draw a stick figure with my question, it leaves it open to many other quarterbacks. That was my point on that one. But I agree with you. I think those are the two choices you could seriously look at right now. Ryan Tannehill's out there too. He wouldn't be a bad signing. He's another veteran. He can play a different style of offense. You also have Mike McDaniels who can design an offense, I believe, to anybody.
Sure. But I think he'd like to
make it work.
He'd like to stay in his base offense that he's already got there.
And Russell Wilson, my question to him is because you got Tyreek Hill for a reason, right? You want to put the ball down the field on a regular basis. Does Russell Wilson have that arm anymore? And we don't know.
He's got a 20-yard ball, I think. Can he throw it 50 yards on a rollout? I wouldn't put it on him anymore.
Well, then he's worthless to you. If he can only throw the ball 20 yards down the field, he's worthless to you.
He can throw 30. He can probably throw 35. I wouldn't trust him to try to launch one 50 yards in the air.
You need someone who can throw it 50 yards down the field. You just do. If you're in a Miami offense, that's why you got Tyreek Hill, is to have that over-the-top as a threat. If that over-the-top is not a threat.
Wilson has gotten over-the-top before. I don't know what his arm strength is now. I'd be more worried about his calf, which just doesn't seem to be healed.
Right, what are you willing to pay if you're Miami for either Russell Wilson or Bryce Young?
Not much.
Like, what are we talking about here?
6th, 7th round pick?
I would think it would be a 7th for either of them.
Yeah.
Or if not, just old baseball cash considerations.
It would make sense, especially with Wilson. They're not getting paid. Pittsburgh's not paying him anything now. Everybody, Denver's paying him out. Should just be, here's some cash. You take over the contract, you can have him.
I think you could get, if you're Steelers, I'd be wanting a 4th round pick for him because you're going to lose a 4th round pick to the Bears. You might as well recoup it.
Right.
Miami's in trouble. They're in big trouble right now. They had a nice season set up, and Tua's down, and that's it. And Tua's gone. Like, you built this team to win now, and you don't have that quarterback you built it for. He's gone.
It reminds me of the Packers when Rodgers went down with his collarbone being broke. You're done.
They held on, though, and Rodgers came back, and we went to the playoffs.
Understand.
Different situation. Tua's not coming back.
Nope. Well, he's out for 4 games. Minimum. I don't think he should play again. I've already said that.
This is not a collarbone where it's like, come back. The worst thing is you break your collarbone again. This is your brain. And we talked about Favre. And no, I don't think getting hit in the head necessarily caused Parkinson's, right? It may have accelerated it. Maybe it was already there and then accelerated it. It's possible. This is a different ballgame. This is your head can't even take a hit to a forearm in an NFL game.
He went down and he seized up. He should be done.
That's it. He's done. You have to find another quarterback for the long term, but you can't let this season just be a waste. You paid all these players these money. You paid all these players this amount of money to win now.
Which is why they need to go and get another quarterback and get him in as soon as possible.
Tyreek Hill's not going to be happy if he doesn't have somebody throwing him the ball.
No.
It's just how it goes.
It makes Brian Gutekunst in Green Bay look pretty smart to bring in Malik Willis when he did.
Yeah, but I'm going to say this. Let's jump to this. Week 3 surprises, right?
Okay.
We have a lot of surprises in there. Andy Dalton was one. How bad the Dolphins are was another one without Tua being the starting quarterback. Let's go into Malik Willis. Malik Willis had another win and another great showing in Green Bay in a very run-heavy offense.
Where he was a big part of the run, but he did make some really good passes as well.
Receivers made some great plays.
Yes, they did. Well, again, he threw up a 50-50 ball, and Watson this time went up and got it.
Yep. A lot of his balls were behind the receivers on crossing routes. Now, that'll get better as he gets used.
Yeah, he's been here for 30 days.
Right, and I think he's still getting used to speed in the NFL. His Tennessee time doesn't count. He wasn't ready as a quarterback yet.
Right.
The same reason you can't really count Sam Darnold his years with the Jets or with Carolina. He wasn't ready with the Jets, and Carolina was Carolina. So you can't count those years. This is really his first chance to be a quarterback in the NFL. Malik Willis, I think it's the same thing. He's looked great. But again, those passes have been very behind, and you didn't really have to throw the ball.
But he did enough to win, and I give all the credit, not only to Willis for working his behind off, but you've got Tom Clements, who with another quarterback again.
Should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean,
he did it with
quarterbacks.
From Favre to Rodgers to Love, and now in 30 days, making Malik Willis look completely different than he did in Tennessee.
Yeah.
He was
smart.
Good
for LaFleur, realizing I have to adjust my game to this guy. I don't think LaFleur is doing that in his first 2-3 years of the NFL. This is my game plan. I want you to adjust to this. And I do think Rodgers was good for LaFleur in that sense, because Rodgers said, no.
Yes.
You're going to run an offense I'm comfortable with, and we're going to figure this out together.
But last year really was LaFleur's offense.
Yeah.
He settled in. He knows it now.
Right.
And so does Love. It's his team. And Willis just fit in. He was able to adjust the playbook to meet Willis's strengths. And Willis, on top of that, was smart enough to play within himself. He tucked the ball. He would check down 1 or 2 and then he ran.
Yeah. That's his game. You only need to win. If you can win every game with a backup, you can't do any better than that.
If you would have talked to me after Love went down and said, okay, Love's going to be gone for the next 2 games, I would have been happy.
0-3.
I would have been thrilled with 1 and 2.
Yeah, for sure. But hey, we got lucky with the teams we were playing. We got lucky we have a good running game, and our offensive line stood up. I am really annoyed at our offensive line for one reason. Josh Jacobs is on my fantasy team, and they decided to hold every time Josh Jacobs ran for 6+ yards.
But Wilson looked great.
Shut up. I didn't have him on my fantasy team. This is what sucks about fantasy football. Can't fully enjoy a win because a player I have this is why I don't draft Packer players. It drives me nuts. I knew better than this. I'm going to trade him just so I can enjoy a football game again. But it really was. Like, every time Jacobs ran 6+ yards, I'd look at you and say, come back. Sure enough, holding play, because the fantasy gods hate me.
They've got to fix that. Anyways, my other surprise, continued great play of Sam Darnold.
I don't think this is a surprise. I really don't. I said this earlier. The Jets, he wasn't ready to start in the NFL. He was 20 years old at that point, still getting his feet wet. And then again, he was in Carolina just being Carolina. Right. The Jets just being the Jets, putting a quarterback in that isn't ready. They do it all the time. This is his first chance to really start. It's his first chance to have an actual team around him.
And a good coach.
He was the number 3 overall pick for a reason, and you're seeing that reason now. If he continues to play like this, especially if he makes a deep playoff run, Minnesota has questions they have to answer to all of a sudden.
Yeah, because if he continues this play throughout the season, he's going to be your starter next year. And J.J. McCarthy.
But he's going to demand more than a 1-year contract.
Oh, absolutely.
He's going to say, no, I want 5 years. And Minnesota, you can't commit that. You just drafted this kid.
If I tell you what, if Darnold gets them to the playoffs and they look good all year, you got to sign him.
I agree.
The role. He's a young guy.
Listen, you pull a San Francisco where you say, listen, I know you're a number 3 overall pick. I know we traded up for you, but you're not our guy. Brock Purdy's our guy. You need to be able to do that same thing in Minnesota.
And I think Connolly can do it. Or Kevin O'Connell.
You keep calling him Conley, which gets me to call him Conley.
Yeah, I know.
And then I have to look this up and make an apology on the show.
I do the same thing with Koepka, who is forever going to be Koepka from now on.
Good, because you keep calling him Bruce.
And it's not.
It's Brooks.
But
Sam Darnold, though, check this out. He already has 8 touchdown passes, which is almost halfway there to his record of 19 touchdowns in a single season. And he's on pace to absolutely destroy his highest passing yards, which is 3,024. He's on pace for over 3,700.
We'll see what happens. Now they're getting into the meat of lineup. Packers and Vikings play this week.
They are, but you can't say in the meat of the lineup. They beat San Francisco.
They did. Although San Francisco, well, they haven't looked good the last couple weeks.
Yeah, but they've beaten some good teams. Next week against the Packers, I think it's a test for both teams.
Jordan Love will be back, but he's going to have a certain amount of rust on him.
No, he won't. He's ready to go.
I think he'll be ready to go, but I think he's going to have to get into the speed of the game a little bit. He's going to have to get in there fast.
It's going to be a really good game.
You want to do the next one? Because this is...
Yeah, Justin Fields. It's amazing what happens when you build an offense that fits your quarterback instead of forcing him into a situation he's not comfortable with. I will say the Bears tried to do the same thing with Caleb Williams. He looked a lot better when he was able to move out of the pocket. You got to let a kid play his game. They're doing that with Justin Fields. He's looking great.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams is still making a lot of mistakes he made in college. We'll see if he can figure it out. I was right. I mean, that's all it is. Justin Fields was your answer at quarterback.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, he's winning with the team.
He's got a great coach with him. And while Tomlin is a defensive coach, he works very well with his quarterbacks.
They're looking great. Pittsburgh should be very happy they kept Mike Tomlin. They should be very happy they went with Justin Fields as your starting quarterback. And they're going to be a playoff team again this year.
Would not surprise me. The other surprise is the other 3-0 team, Seattle.
It's not a surprise at all. It has nothing to do with Seattle as a team. Who did they beat? They beat the Denver Broncos with a rookie quarterback who looked terrible in his first game, and they barely won that game 26-20. They beat the New England Patriots, who are projected by everybody to be a top 5 pick next year. They barely beat the Patriots, beating them 23-0, and they beat the Miami Dolphins, who had their third-string quarterback. And not only without Tua, their second-string quarterback, who was a starter of that game, got hurt, and they're onto a guy who was on a practice squad before. They haven't beaten anybody.
Geno Smith, though, he looks very serviceable.
Against
the question, I know,
very depleted Denver Broncos defense, a very depleted New England Patriots defense,
I'm
giving Miami team.
I'm giving credit where credit is due. He wins the games. He did well last year as well.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens now coming into this week and the next few weeks.
I've heard it from everybody. Seattle's a real deal. Seattle's this, Seattle's that. They haven't played anybody. Again, they've beaten a Broncos team that isn't that good right now. You beat a Patriots team that isn't good. And you beat a Miami team who had their third-string quarterback. I mean, talk to me next week. If they beat the Lions, okay, I'll talk to you.
In Detroit.
If they beat the Lions in Detroit, okay, we can talk at that point. Don't talk to me about a 3-0 team. Who wouldn't be 3-0 against these 3 teams in this order? Let me see him play Miami in week 1 or 2 when Tua was there. Let me see how all of a sudden Seattle does there.
I'm giving Geno credit because
That's fine. You can give the team credit all they want. You barely beat the Broncos. You barely beat the Patriots. And you beat a Dolphins team that's just trying to figure out what to do now.
Fair enough. Now let's go to the other side of the spectrum. The 0-3 teams. And we aren't talking about Tennessee because they were expected to be a bad team.
I will say, you look at Levis, he's made really good plays, and then he's made dumb mistakes that cost him games.
Yeah.
You need to stick with him and see what you got, but Tennessee's just not a good
But there's 2 other teams that were predicted to be pretty good this year.
Yeah.
And one of them, I want a moment here. This is for all the people who got on me this week because it's normally
I
they
was
get on
so
you.
happy.
They get on you.
I loved it.
People beat me up because I said Joe Burrow was the best quarterback in the
Yep.
league. Okay.
Made me so
He is
happy to
one-
be on this side of
When
the
he's
conversation.
healthy, he is one of the best, and he played Mahomes to a standstill in the playoff game. He is one of the best in the league.
Yeah.
I said the best, and the
How does
short
it
came
feel
out
when the comments turn on you? Because you
I
laugh
can
at
take
me
it.
for it all the time.
all the time because they're great.
This is the first time people have really turned on you, and it made me so happy.
Jaden Daniels outplayed him, Burrow, on Sunday.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels looked real good.
What's wrong with the Bengals?
Joe Burrow's wrong with the Bengals. It's that haircut. The blonde got into his brain.
This is the guy you call football Jesus all the time.
Yeah, and then he dyed his hair.
Yeah, I think there's probably some more to do with it.
I don't know what's going on. It's a bad situation, though. Joe Burrow's still getting back into it, coming back from that injury.
They better turn around this week.
Yeah, I mean, they need to do something fast. Zach Moss has looked great for them. That ended up being a great signing to replace Joe Mixon, but
Their
the passing game's not happening. Their defense isn't holding people. It's a mess.
It's a team. It's a team.
And then you
issue.
have the Jaguars,
Oh.
where I don't know what to make of Trevor Lawrence anymore.
Doug Peterson came out and said there are drastic changes coming and everything's on the table. I wouldn't be surprised if he sat Lawrence for a while.
I don't know what else you can do at this point. I mean, this is a pretty tragic situation.
They're going to clean house. I think Peterson will be gone at the end of this year.
Okay, well, then
Lawrence
you're doing what you do to quarterbacks all the time, which is coach to coach to coach to coach to coach.
I don't think Lawrence will be there next year. I think if they have the...
Of course he is. They just signed him to a massive
I
contract.
understand that.
He's tied for the second highest player. Well, now the third highest paid player in the league.
But can you continue playing him when he's looked so bad?
Yeah, you have to. You just paid him all that money. You have no choice. Trevor Lawrence is your answer at quarterback.
Is he?
I just don't know how you went from what he was supposed to be to what he is. Because I still don't think this is the answer. I still think Trevor Lawrence should be a really good quarterback in this league. Maybe not a Hall of Famer, but he should be really good.
My question is he putting in all the work that he needs to? Is he as focused as he needs to? Because he's making dumb mistakes.
He's not seeing the game.
No.
He's definitely not.
And Peterson's a good quarterback coach, but I think I don't think Lawrence is hearing Peterson anymore. And I think Peterson could be gone mid-season.
I don't think he's a kid that's used to the spotlight. I don't think he liked, and he kind of alluded to that. He didn't like that they named it Trevor Bank Stadium. He doesn't like being that guy.
You're the third highest paid quarterback in the league. You better accept the fact that
I understand that. You understand that. He shows flashes at times. I mean, the talent's there. I don't know what the story is with him.
I mean,
but you got to get it figured out because he has weapons. You can't sit here and say
No.
he doesn't have any weapons around him.
and he's in a media market that's very small and parochial. Jacksonville's a larger city, but the media market itself
Well, it's the smallest metropolitan area of any major city in
and
the
the
United
media
States.
when I was in Florida is very similar to a Green Bay in that they don't ask the tough questions.
No,
They take care of their athletes.
they do. I don't know what the answer is, man. I really don't. They need to figure it out. But if I'm the Bengals, I'm hitting the panic button. If I'm the Jaguars, I'm hitting the panic button. If I'm the Titans, I'm accepting this as my known fate.
I'm not hitting the panic button with Cincinnati if they win this week.
Who are they playing?
Who are they playing?
Well, let's be honest about one thing. They got the game stolen from them against Kansas City, and so that was a bit of a different story. By the way, that is the second week in a row that Kansas City has either gotten a BS pass interference call or had a pass interference call not called that should have been. That pass interference call or no call for the final play of the game in front of Kyle Pitts.
What are you referring to?
That was a joke.
You think?
An absolute joke. I am getting sick and tired of this. This is why teams get hated. It's like the NFL's on your side right now. That was a BS call against Kansas City because it was borderline pass interference. Borderline. They were both going for the ball behind him.
But the one at the end of the game,
joke. The one at the end of the game against the Falcons, how do you not call that?
I mean, he mugged him.
He wasn't looking at the ball, was tackling him before he even had a chance to catch it. Should Pitts have caught that ball? Probably. He had his hands on it, but it's really hard to do when you're being pushed back as you're trying to catch it.
There is such a thing as the momentum carrying you away from the ball. Yeah, it should have been flagged.
This is getting to be a joke.
They got
an absolute joke.
And by the way, Cincinnati will get well this week. They play the Panthers.
Well, we'll see. Andy Dalton looked great last week.
I think the Bengals are going to get healthy this week. It's in Carolina.
Depends which Andy Dalton you're getting.
If they go 4-0 or 0-4 rather, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of the Bengals this year anymore. It was supposed to be their comeback. Burrow is not the same.
He's not playing as well. He's not playing up to the level that he is when he is one of the best in the league.
You said the best.
One slip of the tongue in 3 years, and this is what I get.
I mean, you've had a lot. This is just the first one that got made into a short. And again, awesome to be on this side of the table when those happen. I'm not used to it. It's the first time people have actually gone
people
after
ride you pretty hard, and I'm usually the warm cuddly.
And I make intelligent comments.
Sure you do. Anyways, all right, let's move on because I want to talk about this one while we still have time.
Yeah.
The 2025 Hall of Fame candidates were listed today or this week.
Yeah.
And there's some great names on this.
I mean, I don't see anybody on here who really couldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
I broke it up into 3 sections. I've got first ballot, I've got Hall of Fame, but not first ballot, and then on the outside looking in. Great players, but not Hall of Fame. My first ballot one's Luke Kuechly.
Luke Kuechly?
Kuechly.
You know, I want you to say it that way again. That was
Eli Manning.
You have a stroke just now?
Stop it. Eli Manning is going to be a first ballot.
Yeah,
and there's going to be a lot of hatred towards that, by the way.
It shouldn't be. Kurt Warner was a first ballot Hall of Famer. Of course, Eli Manning's a first
Earl
ballot
Thomas
Hall of
is
Famer.
going in. Legion of Doom. Here's one that I should go in, but I'm not sure he would. Adam Vinatieri.
He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
He should be. He absolutely should be, but
I mean,
he's a kicker.
If he didn't have the Super Bowl performances that he had, he probably wouldn't be. I mean, he's definitely not the most accurate kicker to ever play the game, but when the game was on the line, I mean, you wanted Adam Vinatieri as your kicker.
So he should go in first ballot. I'm not sure he will.
Yeah, he definitely will be.
Here's the one.
Will he be the first kicker to be first ballot Hall of Fame?
Absolutely.
I'm serious. Like, would he be?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think Ray Guy got in for several years.
No, he definitely didn't. He just got in not that long ago.
But there was, other than that, I mean, kickers rarely got in.
I really didn't know the answer. I didn't know if there was anybody from back in the day that was a first ballot Hall of Famer that was a kicker only.
Even guys like going way back in the day, Jan Stenerud, who was a great kicker for Kansas City for all those years, finished in Green Bay.
Yeah.
He wasn't first ballot.
Huh.
And he should have been. Hall of Famers that will definitely be in the Hall of Fame at some point, but not first ballot. I've got Clay Matthews.
Clay Matthews getting in this year.
I don't think he will.
I saw you wrote that down. I think that's a joke.
I don't think he gets in. I just don't.
The guy was the best linebacker for 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
He has 91.5 sacks.
I don't think he gets in. I think there's a Packer bias. There is a Packer bias because they've got so many in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but who cares? A Hall of Famer's a Hall of Famer.
I know.
Are you telling me if he was a Jaguar, he'd be in the Hall of Fame? First ballot?
I'd say if he was in New York, he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Well, if
or in L.A.
If he was in New York, he'd be considered the greatest linebacker of all time.
I don't think he gets in this year. I think he gets in maybe next year. Terrell Suggs.
I don't know about that.
Terrell Suggs should be a first ballot.
There's so many first ballot Hall of Famers on here. Luke Kuechly. I mean, if you're going to pick a linebacker, though, you should be picking Clay Matthews over Luke Kuechly. Now, Luke Kuechly, don't get me wrong, one of the best linebackers of all time.
Yeah.
But he dealt with a lot of injuries that kept him off the field.
Now we're going to be
Clay Matthews outperformed him.
We're going to be accused of being Packer homers on this one.
Well, one, I am a Packer homer, and I'm not afraid to admit that. But in this case, if you look performance to performance,
Clay Matthews got some of the...
And even if you look at eye test and longevity, Clay Matthews wins that battle against Luke Kuechly. Not saying Luke Kuechly isn't one of the best linebackers of all time. He just couldn't stay healthy.
Also, Clay Matthews had some of the worst calls on him I've ever seen back when they were trying to make an example, and they made it on him.
3 sacks taken away.
Yeah.
100%.
I got Joe Staley.
Joe Staley's first ballot Hall of Famer.
He's not going to get in. You're going to get
He's
5
100%
at the most.
going to
You're
get
going to get 5 in at the most. You're not putting all these guys in. Vernon Davis, another one.
I don't know if Vernon Davis is a Hall of Famer.
I think he is. I've got him as somebody who will get in eventually.
He was really good for a couple of years and then kind of fell off the
I
map.
think he'll get in.
Don't
And these
know.
guys are on, I've got as the outside.
I don't know how.
In.
Go ahead. This is dumb.
I don't think they get in. This one I'm questioning. Aqib Talib.
Yeah.
You
are not good with names today. This is
not. It's normally you. Normally I'm better than that.
Normally I sound like the drunk, even though you and I both don't drink.
Ryan Callow. I did it again.
This is amazing.
And Marshall Yanda. I don't think he's ever going to get in. But Talib might get in.
I want a new segment that is Dad trying to pronounce players.
No, I admit, you've tried to get me to pronounce Giannis's last name, and I can never do it. So it's Giannis, and that's it.
That was that was a Hall of Fame performance right there of you just trying to pronounce names.
Hall of Shame.
Yeah, exactly. Aqib Talib is a Hall of Famer. I'm with you. I don't know, because this is a stacked group.
This is an unbelievable group this year. That's why I want to talk about it.
Aqib Talib might not get in this year. Definitely a Hall of Fame player. Ryan Khalil, I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer. I don't know if Marshall Yanda is going to get in the Hall of Fame. Vernon Davis, I'm not as high on him as others are because it wasn't, I don't know. He was really good for a long time.
Really, really good.
He was really good.
I think he gets in at some point.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know if he's first ballot.
He's a tight end. Which
as we're talking about it and as I'm thinking back to Vernon Davis, I'm kind of starting to change my mind on that one. Because he is one of those guys that initially you're like, is he a Hall of Famer? But then you start to think about his career, and it's like,
just think,
oh man, he was
think
great.
Back to some of those games you watched him play.
Yeah,
he's a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Fame player. Probably not first ballot. Joe Staley's definitely a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't know how he doesn't get on this list. You can have 5, right?
Well,
Eli Manning's a shoe-in. Earl Thomas is a shoe-in.
Right.
I think Terrell Suggs is a shoe-in.
He should.
Adam Vinatieri, I think, is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Okay, you're limiting yourself then.
And so you have Luke Kuechly or
Clay Matthews.
I'm gonna be confused. I'm gonna be accused of a Packer homer. I think it's Clay Matthews. I do think Luke Kuechly's also a first ballot Hall of Famer. Don't get me wrong. It's just you can only have 5. If you look at longevity and actual stats, Clay Matthews wins in both. But I think the Packer bias, and I do think that I don't know.
Here would be the
that would be the only thing I think that could keep him out.
Here would be the travesty is that they put in a Terrell Suggs, who I think should be in, and leave an Adam Vinatieri off.
Well, I mean, you take the kicker off over the football players for sure. Kickers are football players. I apologize. Kickers are football players.
No,
you guys are great. Yes, they are. It's hard to kick a football.
You've watched Packer games recently.
Right.
Yeah.
After watching the last few years of Packers kicking, I will never question a kicker in my life.
I am going to say this once again. When the Veterans Committee comes up, I hope Sterling Sharp gets in because he belongs in the Hall of Fame. It's time to put him in.
I mean, Eli Manning, Earl Thomas, for sure.
And then
agree on those.
I could see Suggs going in the first year.
Suggs is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think Joe Staley is too. So the question is it going to be Vinatieri, Kuechly, or Matthews in the first ballot? I think they're going to take Vinatieri. I don't know. I don't envy.
This is a tough list this year.
The Hall of Fame committee this year. These are hard picks to make.
I hope Matthews is a Hall of Famer. I don't know that he's going to get in.
I would question, honestly, if either Matthews or Kuechly get in their first year. Because I do think Joe Staley gets in. I do think Terrell Suggs gets in. And so the question is, are you going to take Adam Vinatieri, Luke Kuechly, or Clay Matthews as your first ballot Hall of Famer?
We're going to find out shortly. I think they'll take the Panther. Take Luke. Not even trying his last name again. I learned.
I don't know, but we need to make the picks that are destined to go wrong. I'm not doing good this year.
You're not doing bad. Oh, yeah, you are.
I officially have a losing record. It was only a matter of time. I am 7-8 after going 2-3 last week. You went 3-2 last week, bringing your total to 9-6 on the year.
I've been 3-2 every week.
Yeah, that's great.
Doing great.
Hey, that's a win, man. I've
is.
been 2-3 most weeks. So let's start down the list. Saints at Falcons. Division game.
Division game. Saints have been playing well.
Last week they weren't great.
Last week, I think the Falcons win this pretty easily.
I think you're starting to see Kirk Cousins get comfortable.
He looked much better last week.
Saints are pretty stacked, though. I think people are, including myself, I think I looked past them a little bit. But I also am going to take the Falcons on this one.
All right. Next game, we've got the Steelers at the Colts. People are ripping on Richardson.
You can rip away all you want. He's still a young quarterback. This is only his, I mean, he's going into his 8th game as an NFL starter. That's all it is.
He's still learning.
He's still learning a lot, but he has moments where it's like, oh, this guy's going to be a star.
The end of the Packer game was one of them.
And I think you're going to see a turnaround here. I think it's a really good defense. I think he's up for the task, and I think the Colts are going to win this one at home.
Okay. I'm going to take the Steelers because they're on a roll. I will always go with Tomlin.
All right. On to the next one. Bills at Ravens. The Ravens looked great last week.
They did. They played a much better game when they needed to. The Bills are 3-0. And it's in Baltimore.
It is in Baltimore.
I think the Dallas game was a get healthy game for the Ravens. I think they're going to win at home.
Here's the thing is they relied heavily on the run game. And that is something I think the Bills are going to stop. They're going to say, you're going to have to beat us with your arm. And until Lamar can prove that he can do that, I'm going to pick against him and go with the Buffalo Bills, which means the Ravens are going to win.
Seahawks at the Lions. This is a game that's going to prove whether the Seahawks are for real or not.
Lions.
And I'm taking the Lions as well.
The Seahawks are about to be ousted as a team that is not as good as people think they are because they've just beat bad teams. They're a middle-of-the-pack team. That's what they are.
True, but that division is looking weaker than I thought. I knew the 49ers would take a step back. The Rams came back and won, but they haven't looked great.
Cardinals will look good, though. It's an interesting division. It's a weird one. I think it's a division in transition.
And the final game, because we always take the Packer game, the Vikings travel to Lambeau.
Well, not only is it a game we always take, but this is actually a really good game. I think this is going to be a tough one for the Packers.
Love's coming back for
anybody that watches this show knows that I don't pick against the Packers. The moment I pick against the Packers, you know it's been a bad season. So I'm going to take the Packers either way. But the Vikings are a really good team, and I could easily see the Vikings come out on top on this one.
I could too. They've been playing exceptionally well this year. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when Jordan gets on the field and if he's ready to step up.
If this is in Minnesota, I think Minnesota wins. I really do. I'd still pick the Packers because I don't pick against Packers. But I would think Minnesota would win that game because it's in Lambeau. That home field advantage makes a big difference
in both parks.
And Sam Darnold hasn't really seen a Packer crowd before. This is a different experience. I think I do think the Packers are going to win this game, but I could easily see the Vikings.
I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings win, but I think the Packers are going to keep riding what they got in the last 2 weeks. They found out that they're a really good team,
and they're starting to get used to that defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a good game, man. I'm nervous about this one. As a Packer fan, I'm very nervous about this one.
Going against Aaron Jones.
Oh, and Aaron Jones homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Vikings could win this game.
Unless
I'm not going to pick them.
The Packers could stop Jones, and that would slow down the Vikings considerably.
Would it, though? They have a solid passing game, and Darnold's look great.
We've got defensive backs.
We do.
Been stepping up.
I really think the Packers are going to win this game. I've been called a homer. I am. And that's why I'm picking the Packers. But I'm saying the Vikings could easily win this game. This is going to be a great game to watch.
It will. Should be. Is it the noon game, too?
It is the noon game, which surprised me they haven't flexed it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. They flexed this early in the season.
Maybe they don't.
Should be the Sunday night game.
Yeah, but nobody thought the Vikings were going to be good.
They didn't.
I mean, if you're the early pick, we didn't think so either. I did, but nobody else did.
It's kind of cool to see them playing a bunch of noon games again.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of years.
I can tell you, my wife is much happier with the noon games. She's like, oh, we actually get to see you at night? I'm like, yeah, I'm here. All right. It has been a heck of a show, but as you all know, you cannot have a conversation with your dad without your father getting the last word. So it is all you.
So I heard a very tragic and sad story this week. This is something that happened last year. Peyton McNabb was a star high school volleyball player. She had big dreams, beautiful young woman. She was going to go places in her life. The school and the state allowed a boy to play in girls volleyball. He hit the wall so hard, Peyton didn't have time to react. She took it off the head. She's paralyzed. She's got brain damage. Her life was altered forever. And her parents are obviously suing. I hope they win. I know I'm on my soapbox about this again, but we're in the fall of the year. Schools are just starting. States, courts, common sense has to win, and transgendered male athletes are still males. They should not be allowed to compete against girls this season. Is it going to take somebody to get killed? We already have somebody in a wheelchair with brain damage. We got to end this, and we got to end it now. And I'll keep getting on my soapbox until it's settled, whether it needs to go to the Supreme Court or whether Congress does something. This has to stop. We can't keep hurting young girls like this.
Thank you, as always, so much for watching. This has been Sports Talk with Dad. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.